Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Colin Was Right. This week I want to focus on Xbox, specifically regarding Microsoft's somewhat surprising announcement that it would be moving its all-important E3 press conference forward a day. For a company that's been beaten badly by its competition, this seemed to me like a shrewd and smart move, and I want to talk about why. But first, let's get some instructive data out there into the wild, and then talk about the current state of affairs for the Xbox brand. As usual, context is everything. Xbox One is getting soundly clobbered by PlayStation 4 in sales, it's not even close. But when discussed on its own and not in a competition, Xbox One is actually doing fine. The console came out in November of 2013, and in the 3 years and change since then, around 26 million Xbox One consoles have been sold to players around the world. We don't know that from Microsoft, but from SuperData Research, which reported the number back in January of this year. 26 million falls in line with the data given by Electronic Arts late last year, noting that 80 million PS4s and Xbox One units were anticipated to be in the wild by the end of 2016. We know PS4's number at the time, roughly 55 million, so subtract that from 80 and you get 25 million. Close enough. Xbox One is trucking along, and I think it's important not only to state this fact, but to emphasize it, because it's often glossed over. 26 million units in just north of 3 years means that Xbox One has already outsold the likes of GameCube and the original Xbox, healthily lapped Dreamcast and Wii U, and is creeping up on Nintendo 64. It's just that its competitor's console is selling meteorically, outselling it 2-1 and showing no signs of slowing. When it comes to optics, that's a huge problem because there's a very realistic chance PS4 eclipses 100 million units one day, a feat only 3 consoles before it have accomplished: PS1, PS2, and Wii. Xbox One has little chance of reaching even half that. That's why, while Microsoft wouldn't shut the fuck up about how many Xbox 360s it's sold in years past, the company hasn't officially revealed new Xbox One numbers since 2014. So as you already witnessed, we have to rely on other sources than the horse's mouth. Microsoft needs to do something, and I think aggressively moving its E3 press conference forward a day is just what the doctor ordered. By getting out of the traditionally cluttered Monday press conference bonanza, Phil Spencer and his team can control the hardware-centric, first-party message for more than a few precious hours. Traditionally, Microsoft held its press conference the Monday morning before E3 officially began, while Sony went late in the afternoon/early evening later that same day. Anything good Microsoft announced or otherwise did always had the danger of being quickly eclipsed. This move ensures that Microsoft has at least the potential to portray a positive, forward-thinking message that resonates for a full day, which, as long as the press conference is strong, should only work to benefit Xbox One and the Xbox brand's future prospects. This move could easily backfire, of course, especially if Microsoft's showing is anything less than stellar. The Xbox team must come out and fire on all cylinders in such a way that Sony can't possibly respond in kind. While the notion that Sony changes its press conferences in reaction to what others are doing is often rumored, it's not actually true. I've covered Sony for a long time, I know a lot of people there, and anyone I've ever asked about this insists that they hold firm regardless. I believe them. Thing is, we're not talking about hours anymore, we're talking about a full day. That'll give Sony plenty of time to tweak and respond, and even rehearse those tweaks and responses, which is why Microsoft needs to have a convincing salvo that mitigates any risk. And leaving Sony aside for a minute, having anything less than an exceptional showing will give the media, social networks, and gamers alike the chance to ridicule and pile onto Microsoft in a way that wasn't possible when they were still in the thick of Monday's press conference maelstrom. Microsoft's choice to go early is the epitome of risk-reward, and I respect that because the company is showing a desperation and a willingness to fight. I agree with the conventional wisdom coming out of last year's E3, when Microsoft seemingly prematurely and half-cocked announced Project Scorpio, its upcoming Xbox console that the company claims is more of an iteration of Xbox One than an all-new Xbox. The conventional wisdom was this: Microsoft knows it's lost the generation, that there's no prayer of it coming back into the race, and that, in fact, the longer this thing goes on, the worse the gap between PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will become. Center staging Project Scorpio out of left field was an overt sign of Microsoft's eagerness and anxiety alike. They want to pull the curtains on this generation as quickly as possible, especially considering the gap between the console's sales and especially considering they're still not even a third of the way to Xbox 360's total sales. You can't blame them. It makes sense. The thing is, they seem to have little to show for it. And while PlayStation 4 Pro's reveal event in New York City was nothing short of a shit show, and while the very fact of PS4 Pro's existence is questionable to some, Sony beat them to the punch with an iterative console. Pro is underwhelming and even a little boring, sure, but it's out there and people are buying and playing the console in not inconsequential numbers. The beauty of the situation for Microsoft, however, is that they got to sit back and watch how the media, market, and gamers alike responded. They could adjust accordingly. Project Scorpio has the potential to be something bigger and better than that, a machine smartly tweaked to respond to an evolving market. Microsoft just needs to play its cards right. In my mind, regardless of what Spencer and his team says, Scorpio is likely a backdoor into a new console generation. It may play Xbox One games at first, and it may enhance new Xbox One games in a style similar to PlayStation 4 Pro, but my hope is that, rumored power and other information aside, Scorpio paves the way for a less pronounced generational leap. Microsoft is already hedging its bets by putting its games on PC as well as Xbox One, which I think is a huge mistake. But since that's the path the company has decided to walk down, Scorpio has the potential to be more than a static box with a small increase in power. Perhaps it'll play all Xbox One games and get no out-and-out exclusives at first, but once proliferated, it will start to garner games that will only run on it as well as PC. Perhaps that would then lead to another iteration a few years down the road, and so on. This would be tantamount to the first soft launch of a generation in console gaming's 4-decade-plus history. I'm intrigued by that possibility, even though it's not what I'd personally want. Since I seem to be in the minority when it comes to my feelings on half-step consoles, maybe we'll just get Pro-like devices in perpetuity and I'm just in denial. Who knows? At E3, there's no danger in Sony saying a word about PlayStation 5, PS4 Pro is already out there circulating, PSVR is doing whatever it's doing, and Vita's gravestone is being carved as we speak. When it comes to hardware, Microsoft can run the ball as it sees fit, and I'm hoping they pull the right play out of the playbook. I'm expecting big things here, and I hope I'm not wrong. A powerful, vibrant Xbox running at 100% efficiency is great for the industry and great for gamers. Where I think things get really interesting, however, is with software. The hard truth is this: Microsoft cannot and will not in any way, shape, or form compete with Sony's exclusive family of studios or the exclusive slate of games those studios release. Microsoft may have its own Polyphony Digital in Turn 10, its own Media Molecule in Rare, and even its own Guerrilla Games in the Coalition, but it doesn't have a Sucker Punch or a Sony Santa Monica or a Japan studio, and it certainly doesn't have a Naughty Dog. Halo and Gears of War are big and they're fun, but they clearly don't have the same punch they did 10 years ago. Microsoft also lacks strong Japanese support, which has been a crucial component of PS4's success, while Xbox One totes an independent scene so much less vibrant and interesting than PS4's. Perhaps the biggest surprise of all, considering how essential Xbox Live Arcade was to the rise of digital gaming. Turns out all of that is a pretty big deal. I was Sony's biggest critic for the first couple of years of the generation, as PS4 exclusives of any consequence rarely came out, and when they did, they were underwhelming. But knack and the Order 1886 gave way to the likes of Bloodborne, Ratchet & Clank, Uncharted 4: Thief's End, and Horizon Zero Dawn, uniformly fantastic games. The future looks bright too, with Days Gone, Spider-Man, God of War, Detroit Become Human, Death Stranding, and more still out there in the ether. And this doesn't even count all the second and third party exclusives. Neo, Nier Automata, and Persona 5 are just a few of the major AAA games Xbox One will never see, released mere months apart, which is why it's imperative that Microsoft gets its slate of games just right, because Sony is absolutely nailing it right now, both in terms of quality and volume. More on this during next week's Colin Was Right. Microsoft needs to get creative. Cuphead is somehow, someway still in development, and it's time to show that baby off one last time and get it into the wild. Phantom Dust is apparently still a thing, but I'm not sure anyone cared before and fewer people seem to care now. Crackdown 3 though? Awesome, show us a ton of that. Sea of Thieves? Thing seems to have bomb written all over it, kind of like PlayStation 4's dreams, but sure, go ahead and blow us away if you dare. Keep that Halo Wars 2 hype going with some future support, it's supposed to be a great game, and maybe tease what's to come for the proper Halo franchise too. Show us a little State of Decay too, simply to placate State of Decay fan number 1, Greg Miller. Is that an ideal slate of games? No, not at all, but it's a good place to start. And when you throw in some great third-party support, some second-party exclusives, and some all-important Project Scorpio information to hype the next generation of Xbox hardware, I think what you come away with is a strong enough press conference to justify the move in date and time, one that buffers Microsoft enough to weather anything Sony throws out into the wild. Shit, throw in a price cut or a cool bundle or something else, Microsoft could easily win the entire show with a left-field announcement, kind of like they did 2 years ago with the awesome announcement of backwards compatibility. This press conference should be used as a tonic not only for the cancellation of a couple of major games in recent memory, Fable Legends and Scalebound, but to show a more competitive Xbox crafting a unique and interesting Xbox ecosystem that will demand attention. The truth is, I kind of feel bad for Microsoft. Xbox One is a good console, and I think that even some of its aborted features like sharing digital games were novel. I love that controller, not to mention the Elite and the customizable suite, which both rule. I love the company's forward-thinking gamer-first attitude, and I love that Phil Spencer has shown so much expertise in turning that ship around. Make no mistake about it, Xbox One's rollout in 2013 under the tutelage of Don Matrick was nothing short of a fucking disaster. Everything about that initial press conference, the DRM, Connect, and Sports/TV/Call of Duty should have buried the console. I will never ever forget watching that conference with my mouth agape, especially on the heels of Sony's amazing delivery early that year in New York City. But smart people revived it and gave it a fighting chance, and it's succeeding to this day as a result. Xbox One's fortunes would be far different today if you could just erase 2013 from history, but you can't, and so here we are. I don't agree with everything the company does. I think putting your so-called exclusives on PC is asinine and heavily erodes anyone's reason to even own an Xbox One. I think its lack of second and third-party exclusives really hurts the console. I think its first-party family is very easily the third best in the industry without question, which only makes more pronounced the dearth of outside but exclusive support. But here's what else I know. A strong, vibrant, and successful Xbox is great for all of us. At the very least, Sony needs staunch competition to keep its own products moving, but at the very most, 3 consoles in, Microsoft itself has landed firmly as an industry mainstay whose health helps dictate the course of gaming. Much of what Microsoft has done in the past 15 years or so has truly mattered, and in some ways the company is a gaming pioneer in its own right. Xbox One still has untapped potential, and a Project Scorpio can help turn the page on a bad portion of the brand's history, starting anew on an even playing field. The slate of games may be unimpressive compared to PlayStation 4's, but it doesn't mean that slate of games isn't going to be awesome in its own right. The best news of all is that console gaming is so much healthier than virtually anyone thought it would be at this point from the perspective of, say, 5 years ago. Both PS4 and Xbox One contribute to that. I guess what I'm saying is I'm pulling for Microsoft. I hope Xbox's E3 press conference is nothing short of phenomenal, and that it helps turn the brand's fortunes around at a time when it seems to need the most help. Scorpio in particular could really harken in the start of something new and exciting. At least that's my hope. Microsoft's bullish move concerning its E3 press conference is, I hope, a harbinger of good things to come. A positive omen when it needs one the most. Thank you for watching Colin Was Right. Oh, and keep an eye out the week after GDC for the rollout of an interview series called A Conversation with Colin Was Right. It's going to be awesome. I'll have more details for you in the next video. Until then, go play some games.